Spoilers, obviously, for this season. So I wanted to do like a fan cast thing for The Expanse, where I, cast all the future actors for the important and some not so important future characters. And then they come out with season 4, and aside from like 3 maybe, all of the major players that will come up in the entire book series have been cast now. So I was a little bit irked that kind of happened. Nevertheless, I will give you my hot takes on this season of my very favorite sci-fi show, because it is a bit different from previous seasons. Personally, overall, I enjoyed it a lot. It had very little of the meh CGI that was one of the major flaws that the show had before. I feel like they did get a bigger budget and invested all of it well. Aside from some minor roles that were little more than extras anyway, the acting was once again tremendous, and the characters very well written, with some notable exceptions that I will get to in a minute. The reason why I say that season 4 is the worst one yet is because it's actually 2 seasons, or rather 2 completely different shows, just mushed together. And the reasons for that are entirely production related. The 4th book, Sabola Burn, is set entirely on Eyeless, which, let's be honest, sounds a lot better than fucking Illis. Whoever made that executive decision, this is the illest motherfucker I ever seen. So the point of view characters are Barcia Merton, Elvie Okoye, Dimitri Havelock, James Holden, and the Investigator, who gets a few interludes. There's no Avasarala, there is no Bobby, Drama doesn't even appear until book 5, and Ashford is at this point dead. All that happens in the entire book is the crisis on Eyeless, which really drives home the isolation of the entire situation. Now you might be saying, hang on a minute, Barcia and Havelock? I vaguely recall those names, but I don't think they appeared in this season. This is true. If you remember, Barcia appears briefly in season 2, where he's Katoa's father and a guy that Prax knows. In the books, he was a welder and also the guy who blew up the landing pad, but he was merged into Lucia Mazur for the show, who in the books was also a doctor, but Barcia's wife. Havelock had a much bigger role in season 1, where he was Miller's partner, and in the books he is the chief of security on the Edward Israel. Basically Murtry's right-hand man in orbit, while at the same time kind of being the guy that ultimately questions him a lot. He has some really great scenes with Naomi. In the show, that part was merged into Fire Sarkis, who in the book was on Eyeless itself and had a really poorly written romance plot with Elvie. It's like, hey, Elvie, you have this celebrity crush on Holden that really prevents you from thinking properly. But at the end of the day, all you have to do is get laid with this guy who's been into you clearly from the very beginning, and then you'll be in love forever and get over Holden. I do hope they get together in the show also, because they made a great couple in the books. It's just the way that it was pulled off was pretty shit. I mean, they also did the whole character merging and really shuffling thing in season 3, and they pulled it off very well. They took Michio Pa, Samara Rosenberg, Carlos Bull de Barca, and Ashford, whose first name isn't revealed, and reshuffled them into Drummer, Naomi, and the show's Clyce Ashford. And they're all very different characters too. Speaking of which, this is the exact reason why season 4 was 2 things just kind of clashed together. For like very practical production reasons, you can't just take half the cast of a show and have them not show up at all for an entire season. You can do that in books, but you can't do it in shows. You lose castings, you lose insurance, you lose scheduling, all kinds of things can go wrong. This is why they gave all the characters from the previous seasons that they're going to once again have in later seasons plotlines, none of which were in the books. Also, none of which were all that good, I'll have to be honest. First of all, Avasarala, still my favorite character in both books and show. I didn't really appreciate the whole re-election plot. In the books, Avasarala doesn't even become Secretary General, instead chooses to remain in the shadows, while Esteban Sorrento Gillis loses his re-election campaign to Nancy Gao for obvious reasons, whom Avasarala serves because she knows she's good as a technocrat, but not as a politician. She explicitly has no interest in being Secretary General. This is also mentioned in the show, but like not very well, I feel like. I don't like the new Arjun. I have no idea why they recast him, but both the changes to the character and the actor himself bother me. Original Arjun was just the sweet, loving, supporting husband, a poetry professor who doesn't even like politics that much. And, you know, show Arjun was exactly the same way up until this very point in the show, where he suddenly is very involved in Avasarala's political life and her career, and they clash over it severely. He comes off as a much more jaded person, and just the two actors, the characters, they have no romantic chemistry at all. Listen, I just don't like the idea of the Avasaralas fighting, because I have read the books. Drummer and Ashford's plotline, I actually really liked. Because Bull was in the books the person who had the back injury, and he died in that elevator shaft scene where he kills Diogo with the hand grenades, but they need to have Drummer be functional and able to walk in the show. They kind of like hand wave the in-universe medicine so she can regrow her spinal cord despite doing everything wrong in the previous season. But that's fine because she's just fucking cool as shit, and frankly, I'd have to say my second favorite character after Avasarala. Ashford is massively different in the show to the books, because in the books he was this like college-educated buffoon, like high society belter who got into the position of captain of the behemoth because he had connections. And also he's extremely incompetent. Like, the show Ashford also makes the wrong decision, but at least he makes the wrong decision because he disagrees on something in a way that makes sense. Joe Ashford is also a badass reformed pirate, the Shadow Knife of Callista. I mean, motherfucker, have you ever heard a cooler title? Just the accent, the morality issues, the gentle sort of Easter eggs into his past, and the sea shanties, the belter sea shanties, my god. I really like his ship, the Tainan, even though it does seem a bit like small to me. It's nice to see like a competent OPA navy. And the scene where it just comes like flying out of the airlock and backwards and just this doom, it's genuinely probably my favorite action scene of the show, which is saying something. And holy shit, does he work well with Drummer. And you know, even though there's this massive age difference, I gotta say they had chemistry, and not just as like friends. His death at the end, very sad, but also so well done. It really kind of makes me look forward to another heroic sacrifice of a certain character that will happen in space in some seasons down the line. The purpose of the whole plotline was to introduce Marco Inaros as a major villain, obviously, which, I mean, in the books, they only do that in Nemesis games. And it's pretty uncertain if he actually is a villain until he does his big thing. And I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with how he was cast. He plays up this insane visionary character crazy well. I really don't like that they sort of revealed what his plan is at the end of the season. They should have kept that a lot more vague. It is pretty much literally the most impactful thing that happens during the entire show, which I suppose kind of brings me to Bobby's plotline. I'm sorry, but what the fuck were you thinking? This is one of the most out-of-character things that has ever happened. Bobby is a patriot, a trained MMC Force Recon Marine, the most badass killers in the solar system. And they pretend like she kinda gets dragged in, but let's be honest, she just makes the decision to become a criminal for money. I don't care that it turns out Isai Martin is actually a nice guy who just wants to get his family off a dying Mars, and that Lily is actually a lot sweeter than she makes herself appear. It's just tremendously jarring to see Bobby become a literal criminal mercenary in the first place. I do genuinely believe that this plotline could have been pulled off in this exact way if they had given Bobby more time to become a cynic about Mars. But that didn't happen because, you know, it was just a thing that was in there so they could keep the actor. I know they need to establish Martian military hardware going missing, but I feel like they should have done that in a different way, and they could have done that in a different way. In the books at this point, she works in a veterans outreach, which, granted, in the books, she also didn't basically completely disregard the chain of command in a crucial moment for the right reasons in the ring space, because she wasn't in the ring space. As much as I liked seeing Mars, and as much as I liked Bobby just kind of being Bobby in the action scenes, I did not really enjoy this plotline at all. As for the main plot, the disaster film on Eyeless, it was good. Genuinely, the camp looked exactly like I had imagined it, not even joking. The alien structures were properly alien. Bern Gorman did a fantastic job playing Murtry. Like, goddamn, not even Inaros managed to steal his thunder. He may well be my favorite villain in all of the books, and that is saying something. I like that they put more focus on the relationship between Amos and Chandra Wei, simply because Amos is probably the character with the most interesting psychology in the whole universe. I like the way they gave Naomi her first time on a planet and it doesn't go so well plot, though the hair was kinda weird. Like, having the long curly hair is an important thing for Naomi in the books. She hides behind it when she feels a bit introverted. But I suppose you can't have introverted, strong female characters. They have to be like extroverted leadership figures. I don't know. I just don't understand why they did this. But frankly, it is such a minor thing to get hung up on. At the beginning, the fact that they kind of shot all of the Eyeless plot in a different format sort of irritated me. But later I found it kind of fitting. It's a great way to even further visually distinguish this plot from all the others, which usually they have different color schemes to show you which parts of the world they are currently in. But the fact that it was shot in such a cinematic format really drove home that this is a very self-contained plot within the larger universe, and it looks cool as hell. I've said this before and I will say it again, The Expanse is a way better adaptation than Game of Thrones, and it will continue to be because the showrunners are actually good at creating story. The dip in quality this season isn't the same thing as the dip in quality that happened with Game of Thrones that eventually turned out to not even be a dip, but like just a steep downward slope. This is just a side effect of adapting something to television that shouldn't have been adapted to television. And frankly, considering how incompatible it is, they did a really good job. Thank you very much for watching this review of Season 4 of The Expanse. Like, comment, subscribe, share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Consider supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar if you feel like it, maybe buying some of my merchandise or my own book. And in that spirit, I mean, telling you to go watch The Expanse is a bit pointless because hopefully you've not just watched all of the spoilers without having seen the show. That would be pretty sad. And see you around, cunts.